Hello, ladies and gents, and welcome to episode number 6 in a video series about JDBC full CRUD application. In the previous video, we implemented some validation rules on our model classes to prevent invalid data from ever entering into our database. In this video, we are going to continue on and put now our retrieve operations such that we're going to get the data from the database and show it on the JTable. We will also make our application ready for update operations by adding a functionality that when you click on one row on the table, it is going to get that customer or that entity and populate it into the form ready for updating. Now let's get on with this. We'll start with the DB in our customers DAO. We already have a method for retrieving all the customers. This was created when we needed the list of customers to be placed into our combo box when we develop the create operation of the rental entity. So this is the one that we are actually going to need. Now all we have to do is go ahead and open up our UI right here. And so the thing is, when we load this UI, we should get the list of our customers and populate it onto this JTable here. I think this JTable is not yet named. As you can see, it's still named JTable2. So let's change this name to customers table. All right. And now in the code, we are going to add another property, which is going to be a list of customers. We'll call this customer list, which will start off as a null value. And of course, we are going to import that. And inside of our constructor, we are going to retrieve the data from the database by calling our customer DAO method getAll. Of course, this is going to be inside of a try catch because it's bound to throw an exception. So here we're going to say customer list is equal to customer DAO dot getAll, and just catch this exception. The message would be whatever the message of the exception object. We'll have this an error as a title, and this is an error message. Now after getting, what's wrong here? Oh, now after getting all the data from the database into a list, we can now just use this list to populate all the data into the table. And to do this, in the future, we are going to have a different set of lists because this particular list gets all the customers. In the future, we are also going to have a list of selected customers only based on some filters. And both this and that other one, that filtered one, is going to populate the data into the table. So we're going to separate that action, that operation, into a different method. So we'll have to put here private void tabulate. Just call it tabulate, which will simply read the data from the customers list and put it into our JTable. And to do this, we start off with our string array of headers. This is the customer, so we're gonna have header for last name, first name, address, phone. I think that's all we need to display in our customers table. And now we are going to define our table model. So it's going to be default table model. And inside of here, as a parameter, we'll put the headers. And we'll just start off with 0 rows. This integer here is the number of rows for this model. And now we can populate the data into the model by iterating on our customer list using a for loop. So I'll have for, and for each customer we call C from the customer list. And from here, each time we are going to add a row into our model. So model that add row, and this row will require an array of objects, which is neat. So we'll have a new object array whose contents are going to be taken from the customer object. So here we're gonna call C.get last name for the first data, then C.get F name, and then C.get address, and C.get phone. Okay, what's wrong with this one? This should be add row. Okay, at the end of the loop we are going to implement this model into our JTable. And if I remember it correctly, the name of our JTable was customers table. Then just say add a set model, the model. And to make sure that we refresh the content of the customers table, we can call customers table that revalidate. Like so. Now let's try this out. If we open up our customers, we have blank. I wonder why. Oh yes, of course. This method is not called yet on inside the constructor. So just call it here. Let's run again. Silly me. And there we go. We have our customers. Now the next thing we need to do is to provide a event handler for when the user clicks on one of the rows here, and it should get this particular customer and populate that data right here to make it ready for update. Alright, let's do that. So all we have to do is go to our design, and in our table we right click on that, and here's events and mouse clicked. There we go. And here when we click on the mouse, automatically when we click on the table, we automatically select a row. So we'll simply get that index. As it turns out, the index of the row is also the same as the index of that particular object, that particular customer in the customer list. So have int here, index. Simply get customers table that get selected row, and then we are going to assign the current, which is a customer, to the ones in the customer list with that index. So customer list dot get index, and now we have that object. Next thing we need to do is populate the data of this particular customer object into the form. So we have our lname txt dot set text, and we get current dot get lname. Let's just copy this one. And next is fname, get fname, then address, get address, then phone number, here is a get phone, and finally license number, like so. And let's just make the lname text grab the focus. And that would be it. Let's check this out. So when we click on one customer, for example Trek, and we have populated the data, now this is ready for update. Now let's do this for cars as well. So let's close this up and go to cars form, and let's make sure to rename this to cars table. And then on the source code we add again a list of cars called car list, which is a null value, and of course import list. And then here we're going to populate car list is equal to car DAO. Again, we already have get all in our car DAO, because we also used coded this one when we needed to have the list of cars inside of the combo box when we created the rental create functionality or operation. So all we have to do is call now get all, just like that. And of course the usual exception. Okay, now after getting the list of cars into a list, we'll just now have to populate that into our table. Again, we just call tabulate and pass in. Oh no, we don't have to pass it in because it is a property. Now we'll just have a new method, tabulate. All right, so again we are going to have an array of strings for headers. Our headers would be make, model, color, and just have year, and plate. Then let's also define now our default table model. Let's pass in the headers and 0 initial number of rows. Of course, Control-Shift-I to automatically import default table model. Next is we're going to have a loop with car C, and from car list, and just create a new row, and we'll have new object here whose contents is going to be taken from the car. C that get make, C that get model, C that get year, and C that get plate. And of course, use that model into our table. So cars table, let's set model, model, and cars table dot revalidate. Okay, let's check this out. Click on cars, and we do have our cars here. Of course, we don't have the clicking events covered yet. Let's do that next. So on design, right click here, go to events, and then mouse clicked, and there you go. Here, you're gonna get the index, cars table that gets selected, row, and then we'll have current. Is it named current here? Let's check out. It's current car. I'm not consistent with my naming. So car is equal to car list dot get index, and then we'll populate this into our form. By the way, to make sure that we'll only populating valid object, not null, we'll have to put this inside of an if else statement. So if current car is not equal to null, I'll also have to do this on the previous one, the car, the customer's form as well. I'll just go back to that later. So here we're going to populate now. Our form's name is make text, the same thing. So make txt that set text is going to be current car that get make. Just copy this. Then we'll have model, get model here, and we'll get color, get color, year, and get year. This is an int, so we have to put this inside of a string that value of, like that. Finally, we'll have plate and get plate, and then make text that grab focus. All right, let's see cars, and click on one, and we have okay. All right, now you may probably see a little bit of a pattern here. When we are going to do this for the rentals, it's going to be a little bit complicated than customers or cars. That's because of the fact that the rentals entity have the foreign keys on them, the relationship. So let's apply this now to our rentals. It's not like the cars and the customers table where we already have a get all, because we did this on previous videos. The rental DAO do not have the get all yet, and even that the get all for the rental DAO is going to be a little bit more complicated than the get all of car and customer, simply because the purpose of getting the data from the database, or the function, or the process of doing it, is going to be a little bit more complicated, because we're dealing now with 3 tables instead of just one. That's because when we would like to get a list of rentals, each rental is going to have a car and a customer object inside of it. And therefore, we have to get those data as well from the database. So let's do that now. Public static. This is going to be a list of rental. Get all. Throws exception. Now, before we do this, let's make sure we also import firstly the statement and also the result set. Okay, so first here we are going to define our statement, which is of course taken from the DB create statement. Next is we are going to have our result set, and this result set is the result of the query from the statement. Now here we are going to have a little bit more complicated query statement, simply because we are going to grab data from 3 tables. So first, we're gonna get from the rentals, everything from the rentals, everything from cars, and everything from customers. But our base table here is gonna be rentals, and we'll just have to left join cars and also left join the customers. And we would like to order them according to date taken in descending order. Alright, now let's have a list. We'll be using array list here. This is a list of rental. Okay, let's call this rentals. And then we are going to loop. Press that. Next. Now, inside of each iteration, inside the loop, for every iteration, besides creating a rentals object, we are also going to create objects of car and customer, because each rental object has a property which is of type car and of type customer. So first, let's create our car, and that is why we have to add in or include the data from the car and the customer, precisely because of this reason, that we are also going to instantiate objects of car and customers. And of course, we only get the data of these cars and customers on the database. So here, I'll have the ID. So rs.getInt here for cars.id. Then rs.getString here for cars.make. rs.getString for cars.model. Then color, plate, and year. So rs.getString, cars.color, plate, this is not get string but get int rs or cars dot year. So there we go. We have our instance of car. Besides that, we also need to create an instance of customer. Right, rs.get int customers.id. After L name is phone, then address, and then license number. And there's our instance of our customer. And now we can create an instance of rental. Which we can pass in firstly the customer. Next will be the car. Next is, what's wrong? After the car, I'm losing the intelligence. So you have we have to do the ID first. So rs rs.getInt. This is rentals.id. rs.get date underscore taken. This one is date returned. And finally, this one is rs.get float. Gonna have deposit. Okay. Now that we have an instance of a rental, we can now add this rental instance into our list of rentals, which is exactly what we're building here. So we have rentals dot add rental. So that's for our get all. So as you can see here, it's a little bit more complicated. By the way, this statement has to be outside of the loop. Oh, I'm losing my mind. Oh my god. And here we return rentals. Okay. Now we can move on to our UI. From here, rentals form. Gonna rename this to rentals table. And then go to source. And in here, we create a new property, which is a list of rentals, which we'll call rentals, which starts off as null. And inside of the constructor, you can do a try catch. Okay, and inside of the try catch, we're gonna populate our rentals list using the rental DAO get all, and then we're gonna call tabulate, which we still have to create. So private void tabulate. This is simply a method that is going to read the data from the rentals list and populate it inside of the J table. So the first thing we need to do here is just like the rest is to have a headers array. So we're gonna have here customer, car, date taken, date returned. I think that will be fine. And then we'll have a default table model. And we pass in our headers and 0 initial number of rows. Now we're going to loop on our list of rentals. And for every time we see a rental object, we add that into our table model. So we say model and add row, and inside of here we create a new object array whose contents are the following: the r.get customer, followed by r.get car, followed by r.get date returned, and date no, that this is date returned, and this should be date taken. All right, and at the end of that loop, we're gonna set the model to our JTable. So this is rentals table. Let's set model and revalidate. Okay, let's see if this works. Click on run. We have an error. Oh, what's wrong with this? Maybe it's just an import problem. Let's see. Yeah, I wonder where's the import for the date. Yeah, it did fix that problem. Let's try again. Okay, and click on rentals, and we have an error. We have an error on our DAO. We have no space in between this guy and this guy. Yeah. And there we go. Here's our list of rentals. Now, the next step is, of course, when we click on this, we grab the data here and project it here on the form. Now there's a little bit of a hiccup here because you know that we have here another list of uh, customers and another list of cars, which will be different in terms of value because they are two different objects, although they may have, like for example, this customer Trevor Simtrek is also found here. These two objects are different. They are two separate objects having the same data. Okay, so it's going to be a little bit weird how we are going to select Trevor Sim here when we click on this row. Where simply, what I think we can do is we simply grab the ID of this customer and find that ID in the list of customers here and use that and select that particular customer in the drop down. The same goes for the car. So that's exactly what we're going to do. And so here, let's close this up. Now to implement the thing that I just said earlier, we need to have a private method here that is going to grab the index of a particular customer based on the ID, and also grab the index of a particular car based on the ID. So simply are going to loop, and we don't start with 0, we start with 1 because we know for a fact that our combo box have a null item on the first element, so we don't want that. What's the name? Oh my goodness, I am inside the rental DAO. Should be here. Okay, so we are going to iterate on the cars in the combo box, and we check if car cb dot get item at that index I, if it is equal to ID, then we'll return the I, which is the index. What's wrong here? Oh, we get the ID. Okay, otherwise we'll have to return 0 if it's not going to find anything. We'll also do this for get customer index as well, based again on the ID, and then start at 1, and customer CB now, get item count, and if customer CB dot get item at I dot get ID is equal to the ID, will return I. Otherwise, we return 0. Alright, so this is the thing that we're going to use. Now, let's have the event for clicking. So events, mouse clicked. And here we get the index of the row. So we get rentals table that gets selected row. And so we're gonna have our current is equal to rentals that get from that index. And if current is not equal to null, then we'll proceed with populating our form. So the first thing is the customer's combo box. So we say customer CB that set selected index, and the index is by taking out the index from our method get customer index based on the ID, which is coming from the current that get customer and get ID. Now for car CB that set selected index, again this is coming from current that get car that get ID. Oh, sorry, you have to call first get car index, and the ID is from the current that get car that get ID. Then we'll just populate now the rest, which is easy. So we have date taken txt that set text to current that get date taken. This has to be converted to a string. Then the date returned txt set text current that get date returned to string. And then for the amount txt set text, it's going to be a string that value of the current that get deposit, just like that. Okay, so let's see if this works. All right, rentals, we click here and voila, Trevor Trek, Honda City, and so on. So now our application is ready, and we're able to pick up one item from our table. We are able to grab data from the database and project it or present it on a JTable. And now we're ready to go to the next set of operations. This time we'll do, in the next video, we'll do update operations on all of these entities. Just like usual, let me remind you, if you like these kinds of video, if you want to have more videos like this, please subscribe to my channel, and don't forget to like this video, click on the notification bell, and I see you again in the next episode. Thank you so much.